With just over a month away until the next NHL season starts up, I figured now would be a good time to do my 2024-25 Detroit Red Wings season preview. But before we look into this upcoming season, let's quickly take a look back at last season because it was probably the Red Wings' best season since Steve Yzerman took over as general manager. During the offseason, they acquired some goal scoring when they brought in forward Alex DeBrincat from the Ottawa Senators. They also got scoring from key players like Lucas Raymond, who would take another step forward in his career, scoring 31 goals, with many of those goals being important goals in the games he scored in. Then in December, the team would improve even more when they announced the signing of star forward Patrick Kane, who would go on to get 47 points in 50 games. And finally, goaltender Alex Lyon, who went from starting the season as the Wings' third string goalie to finishing the season as their starter, trying to push them into a playoff spot, and almost repeating what he did for the Florida Panthers during the 2022-23 season. Because of this, the team had much more skill and were able to finish the season fifth in the Atlantic, but unfortunately just missing the playoffs by only a few points. And although the Wings miss, many players took a big step forward, giving the Wings fans optimism heading into this upcoming season. As we take a look at the top scorers on the team, at the top of the list is Lucas Raymond, who registered 72 points in 82 games, taking a huge step forward. Another player who had a big year, scoring wise, was captain Dylan Larkin, who also broke the 30-goal mark, registering 69 points in 68 games. I personally think if injuries didn't affect Larkin, he could have been close to a 90-point season. And finally, Alex DeBrincat, who may not have found the back of the net as much as he would have liked, but he still had a solid first season with the Red Wings, recording 67 points in 82 games. Now, as we move on into this next season, let's start off by taking a look at the departures the Red Wings had this offseason, which was quite a lot when you look at it. The first departure would come when the team announced they traded defenseman Jake Walman to the San Jose Sharks. Walman was a steady D-man who finished with a career-high 21 points with 12 goals, 9 assists. They would also lose UFA's David Perron, who signed with the Ottawa Senators, and Daniel Sprong, who signed with Vancouver Canucks, as well as their top point-getting defenseman Shane Gostisbehere, who went back to the Carolina Hurricanes. Then they traded forward Robbie Fabry to the Anaheim Ducks. I'm curious to see how the Red Wings will do after losing some key scoring on the team. Now, as we look at the key additions the Red Wings made this offseason, starting with the biggest one, Vladimir Tarasenko, who was coming off winning his second Stanley Cup of his career, and he finished last season with 23 goals, 32 assists for 55 points. They also signed defenseman Erik Gustafsson, who had a solid season last year with the New York Rangers and should hopefully fill the role of Gostisbehere on the power play. Gustafsson had 31 points with 6 goals and 25 assists last season. They also brought in fourth liner Tyler Mott. Tyler Mott finished last year with 9 points in 69 games with 6 goals and 3 assists. Steve Yzerman would also sign goalie Cam Talbot, who was coming off a great season last year with the Los Angeles Kings. And with Husso being injury prone and Lyon being a solid number 2, Yzerman would add the 36-year-old goalie to the core, and it looks like as of right now they will try and run with 3 goalies again. One last surprise signing Yzerman had was when they announced that they have signed goalie Jack Campbell to a contract. This signing really interests me because Campbell is a 32-year-old goalie and is now coming into a fresh organization after not living up to his $5 million potential he signed with the Edmonton Oilers. But prior playing for the Oilers, Campbell was actually a pretty solid goalie for the Maple Leafs, with a 31 9-6 record and a .914 save percentage in his final year with Toronto. So maybe with a fresh start, there is a potential chance that he could find his game again. Only time will tell. Now it's time to look at what I think could be the potential opening night lineup. Starting off with the first line. I decided to go with Tarasenko on the left wing, with Larkin down the middle, and Lucas Raymond on the right. I think this trio could become deadly. You have the speed of Larkin, who can create space for the wingers, and if Raymond and Tarasenko can build some sort of chemistry, because we all know how great of a passer Raymond is and how good of a goal scorer Tarasenko is, it's only a matter of time until these two can start gelling. Now, as we look at the second line, I wanted to keep Kane and DeBrincat together, and I know the line of Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond was probably our best line last season. I feel right now, starting this year with Kane and DeBrincat together, it is important to try and get that chemistry they had in Chicago, because when they're in their game, they become a scary duo, and I feel this is the best chance of them getting back to that potential. I say this because This is probably the first time both guys have had a chance to get a full summer of training in. When you think of last offseason, Kane was rehabbing a hip resurfacing surgery, while DeBrincat was coming to a new team, finding a new home, and getting settled in. Now both men have had the time to just focus on improving their games by training to be the best they can before this upcoming season. The third line is one of my favorites when thinking about it. On left wing, I have Michael Rasmussen, who seems to be getting better each season. Big Ras had a solid season last year, finishing with a career high 33 points, with 13 goals and 20 assists. Then at center, I have Andrew Kopp, who needs to have a big season this year. Since joining the Red Wings, Kopp has been a pretty big disappointment scoring wise, especially for his contract. Last season, Kopp finished with 33 points, 13 goals, and 20 assists. So let's hope for a better season from Andrew Kopp. Now, as you see, at right wing, I have put last year's 9th overall first round pick, Nate Danielson. And here's the reason why. I have a lot of confidence that this kid is going to come into camp and do something similar that Lucas Raymond did a few seasons ago, where he leaves the management team no choice but to give him his 10 games look. If you think about last season's preseason, in 5 games Danielson played, he had 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points in those 5 games, before being sent back down to the WHL, where he'd go on to have an amazing season for the Brandon Wheat Kings and Portland Winterhawks, finishing with 67 points and leading the Hawks to the WHL Finals, where they ultimately lost to the Moose Jaw Warriors. Danielson would have 24 points in 18 playoff games, recording 7 goals and 17 assists. Now looking at the fourth line, at left wing there's a few options. There's the obvious choice, who most people predict at the fourth line, which is Tyler Mott. However, I do think a player like Marco Kasper could slot into this spot and could push Mott out of the lineup, depending on how his camp goes. Kasper, who finished last season in his first season in the AHL with a 35-point season in 71 games, with 14 goals and 21 assists. Then there's also the argument that Carter Mazer could also fight his way into the lineup. Last season, Mazer had 37 points in 67 games for the Griffins, with 17 goals and 20 assists. At center, I have Joe Veleno, who had a decent season last year after having a career high with 12 goals and 16 assists for 28 points. So hopefully heading into next season, he can continue to get better. And finally, at right wing, I have Jonathan Berggren, who right now I have starting on the fourth line. However, I feel he can work his way up the lineup as the year goes on. This will be Berggren's first year where he should be able to start the season with the Red Wings. Then there's also Christian Fischer, who is a big heart and soul guy who isn't afraid to drop the gloves from time to time and is a very solid PK killer. Taking a look at the defense core, I have Simon Edmondson paired with Moritz Seider. I mean, come on. You know you want to see this pairing. On one side, you got 6'6" Simon Edmondson, who has great skating for his size and showed in the small sample last year he could hang with the top guys in the league. On the other side, you got Moritz Seider, 6'3", who isn't afraid to put you on your ass. This would be a super fun pairing to watch, and I'm excited to see how it works out next season. On the second pair, I have two vets playing next to each other, with Ben Sherrod on the left and Jeff Petrie on the right. Both have made fans upset with some of their play in recent games last season, but I think it could be a potential solid pairing. As for the third pair, I have Oli Mata alongside Eric Gustafsson. Although I do feel Gustafsson could be a top four guy, I think he will start down on the third pair. I also have Albert Johansson, who could also slot in and get his first game in the NHL. Due to waivers and stuff, the Wings are kind of forced to give him a chance or risk losing him, because in order to send him down, he would require waivers where he would most likely be picked up by another team in need of a young, talented defenseman. And then there's also Justin Hall, who was a pretty big disappointment last season after signing a pretty decent contract with the Red Wings, as Hall only played in 38 games and only had 5 assists. Moving on to the goalies now, I have Cam Talbot as the starter. Talbot had a great season last year, and I don't think Yzerman signed him to be the backup. However, Alex Lyon may make that choice difficult for Derek Lalonde and the coaching staff, because he can also be a solid starter and showed that last season. The third-ranked goalie I have is Ville Husso, who had a great first year with the Red Wings, but since then just can't stay healthy, and in the games he has played, he wasn't very good. And finally, I put in Jack Campbell, who is going to obviously start the year in GR, but as I mentioned before, with that fresh start and goalies being unpredictable, it's possible he could find his way into a wing wheel sweater before the season is up. So I figured I'd add him to this as well. So that will do it for the lineup prediction. Leave a comment down below your thoughts and who you think could slot into the lineup. We'll definitely have to come back to this once the season starts and see if I was right or way off on the prediction. Now, before I close out the video, I just wanted to leave a few questions for you guys to answer in the comments down below, with 3 of the biggest questions heading into this upcoming season. Starting off with question number 1, the possibility of the youth taking another step and forcing it to be difficult for the coaches to make a decision come time for the opening night roster. Looking at the pool right now, you have Marco Casper, Nate Danielson, Albert Johansson, Carter Mazer, and even Elmer Soderblom. You could all argue have a chance at making the roster next season and making this one of the most interesting training camps in recent years. As for my second question, I was wondering what is going on with Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider, who have yet to be extended and still remain unsigned. And according to some sources, they're still far out on a Lucas Raymond extension. However, I haven't heard much on Moritz Seider. So let's hope we hear an extension before the start of training camp, because the last thing we want is both players not in the lineup and waiting for a contract. And for the third question, being which player on the team do you think takes another step forward? Can Lucas Raymond hit 90 points in a single season if he plays all 82 games? Can DeBrincat score 40 goals playing alongside Patrick Kane for a full year? And can Cam Talbot continue what he did for the Los Angeles Kings last season? Time will tell, but I'm definitely excited to watch and see how this team does. But that will do it for the preview for the 2024-25 season. If you enjoyed and want to see more Red Wing content, definitely hit that sub button, as I plan on doing a lot more videos when the season starts, from post-game reviews to covering all the trades and anything to do with the Detroit Red Wings. Hope everybody has a great one, and as always, let's go Red Wings.